The sudden emergence of DeepSeek, the new AI app out of China, sent the industry into chaos when it was unveiled last month. It topped the app download charts and made US tech stocks tumble. But there are concerns over data safety. So how worried should we be? And where does this leave the global race for AI? Hello and welcome to Roundtable. I'm Enda Brady. Now, global AI leaders gathered in Paris this week for a summit hosted by Emmanuel Macron and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. One name is in the spotlight, and that's DeepSeek. The AI app claims to be more powerful than chatgpt and made for a fraction of the cost. So, is it a game changer or a growing threat?
The most powerful people in artificial intelligence, world leaders and tech bosses at the AI Action Summit in Paris. Coming together as a new challenger in the space has emerged. China's DeepSeek. It made global headlines as it went viral, topping the list of the most downloaded mobile apps. And striking fear into the US that China was outpacing its own AI firms.
The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser-focused on competing to win, because we have the greatest scientists in the world. Even Chinese leadership told me that.
DeepSeek has been able to offer a more enhanced AI assistant at a cheaper cost compared to rival chatgpt. But it does have flaws. DeepSeek's answers give one-sided accounts of China's history. And there are concerns over data security, something China has rejected.
I want to stress the Chinese government attaches great importance to data privacy and security and protects them in accordance with the law, and has never and will never require enterprises or individuals to illegally collect or store data.
With the AI arms race underway, could US and China work together? OpenAI's co-founder Sam Altman seems to think so.
How worried are you about China?
What, are we worried about China? We'd like to work with China, I think.
Do you think your government would let you do that?
Do I know that for sure? No. Should we try as hard as we can? Absolutely, yes. I think that's really important.
But as the Paris summit concluded, the UK and US were the only countries refusing to sign a statement about having an open and ethical approach to technology development. And a warning from the US Vice President of too much regulation.
Let me be emphatic about this point. America wants to partner with all of you, and we want to embark on the AI revolution before us with a spirit of openness and collaboration. But to create that kind of trust, we need international regulatory regimes that fosters the creation of AI technology rather than strangles it. And we need our European friends in particular to look to this new frontier with optimism rather than trepidation.
The artificial intelligence race is not only about innovation, but also power, control, and digital dominance. DeepSeek may have the momentum for now, but who will emerge as the lead in this AI revolution?
Well, let's bring in our guests in Berlin. We have Chen. He is Associate Professor in Global Media and Information Law. That's at Durham University. In Manchester in the UK, we had David Edmundson-Bird. He's lecturer in digital marketing and AI. That's at Manchester Metropolitan University. And here with me in the studio, we have Rohit Talwar, CEO of the research and insight business Fast Future. Gents, you're all very welcome to Roundtable. Rohit, I'll come to you first. President Trump says the arrival of DeepSeek is a wake-up call for American companies. I mean, let's be frank, the Chinese, this is a big, big win for them, isn't it?
Absolutely. The big companies who've been creating these generative AI models in the US, like OpenAI and Gemini from Google, they've spent a huge amount of money developing their models and training it. OpenAI, their last version, spent $100 million just training it. DeepSeek has come along, and they say they only spent $5 million. I think that's just on the last round of training. They've spent a lot more than that. But the big thing they've done, because of restrictions on the chips they can use, they've been very innovative in the algorithms that they use to actually do the work of the Gen AI to generate the responses. And so they can do it for a fraction of the cost, a fraction of the energy consumption. They've even surprised the Chinese government, who really weren't that aware of how far DeepSeek was going. There are over 100 different Gen AI tools in China, and actually DeepSeek has already been overtaken in some areas by Alibaba's tool called Qwen 2.5 Max. So we're going to see this continued arms race. Trump is right to say it's a wake-up call, but I don't think it's going to be the seismic impact on the industry that some are saying. It's not going to be that Sputnik moment that suddenly leaves all the US AI companies behind.
Let's bring in Ge. Ge, China racing ahead then in the competition to dominate the AI industry globally. How significant do you think the past few weeks have been, given what we've seen from DeepSeek?
Well, surely this is a very exciting event. And in the past let's say 2 weeks, we have seen a lot of developments and a lot of discussions and debates. And particularly the discussion around DeepSeek brings to the forefront the breakthrough in AI technologies. But it also highlights the essential role of advanced AI chips, which is a significant thing between the US and China in their trade negotiations. This underscores that no matter the algorithm or how well the Chinese have done so far in the algorithm or engineering optimizations, the inherent capabilities of the chips will still set the ultimate limits for both countries that are now in this rivalry. If the US, let's say, the US administration were to enforce a complete ban on AI chip exports to China in near future, that might still significantly hinder China's AI advancements, let's say. So this must be a very important moment. If it is not a Sputnik moment, it might still be a very significant moment for the industries in both countries.
David, the United States banned China from importing these very powerful NVIDIA A100 chips a couple of years ago, and yet China and DeepSeek have still managed to steal a march on all their rivals. How have they done this?
I think if you look at what's behind the ban that was finally signed by Biden, that actually there are other ways of acquiring those chips. And I think rather than necessarily them being acquired through the sort of normal commercial means, they've probably taken a lot of them through the back door. And I don't think that's necessarily limited to just chips with AI. And I think that's probably the way around it, by acquiring them very slowly from different sources. And that's allowed them to then think about how they might use those particular chips more economically.
And David, do you think the Americans have been quite shocked then at just how rapidly the Chinese have done this and the impact in such a short space of time that DeepSeek has had on absolutely everything?
I think it came as a surprise to everyone, and I think it was a surprise that it was as good as it is. And that's the thing that's really sort of thrown everyone off the balance. It is very good. It has output that's as good in quality as a number of the more famous American models. And although there are differences in the kind of things it does, it's certainly interesting enough for people to wake up and take note.
Rohit, give me your professional opinion on DeepSeek then. Is it the standard bearer now?
I don't think it's the standard bearer. It's very good, as David said, at the things it's doing, at generating at speed, really good quality answers. If you compare it to some of the others, it doesn't necessarily provide as comprehensive an answer. It can't handle the full range of what are called use cases, so types of issues you might set it. It's got very good at reasoning. So the generative AI models up until now have largely used prediction, a bit like predictive text on your phone. they've been getting better and better at predicting what the next word should be. Now they're moving towards models that are using reasoning techniques. So they're using a little bit more of what we might call brain power to come up with the answers. And that's particularly useful if you're doing coding of software or solving mathematical problems. DeepSeek is starting to look pretty good at that, but it's got a long way to go. The personalization that you and I can do with something like chatgpt, where we can say what voice, what tone, what style we want things in, DeepSeek isn't quite there yet. And so it will get better. They will get better at this, but it will require a lot of money to invest. And all the big players are moving at speed. Within days, Microsoft incorporated DeepSeek into their core platform. And all of them are working on advances. So, for example, within the last week, ChatGPT has announced this thing called tasks. So you can literally have all these smart assistants working for you in the background. And you'll see this arms race going on where they're launching more and more functionality on a daily basis now. They're all trying to find ways of emulating what DeepSeek did in terms of being much more efficient in the algorithms. Facebook's Llama was already quite advanced in what it was doing. Some people are accusing DeepSeek of using ChatGPT to create the knowledge base, which is part of the reason why it moved so quickly. And so there'll be this continuous race where one company will have a lead, not for weeks or months, but for days. But I think the scale of the investment in the US companies in particular means that they're too big to fail, that the US government will back them, will put in restrictions. There'll be all sorts of mechanisms put in place to restrict DeepSeek. There was a bill going through Congress that was trying to restrict Chinese companies. I don't think that will succeed, but certainly President Trump is very keen to find whatever means necessary to slow DeepSeek down. And you've also got to remember the economic power of these companies. Microsoft alone is worth more than the Times top 100 companies in the UK. And you add together the big 6 US AI-based tech companies, and they're worth about 18% of the entire global stock market. So they are effectively too big to fail, not just for their own sake, but for everyone who is invested in them. If you have a pension fund, you're probably invested in those companies. So there's a huge interest in these companies continuing to succeed. And that, I think, will be part of what hinders DeepSeek from getting the kind of global adoption that they're looking for.
Given the success we've seen of China with DeepSeek in a very short space of time, I'm guessing there's a huge amount of pride across China about this.
Yes, the launch of DeepSeek is a great symbol of big challenges from the Chinese authorities for the United States in the AI sector. So trying to use China's centralized system to potentially overshadow the technological advancements in the United States. It's a big hype that is going on around DeepSeek that has certainly fueled China's nationalist sentiments, and this emphasizes a kind of triumph in the AI sector. It's a race, of course, over the US, and this aligns perfectly with President Xi Jinping's Chinese dream of a national revival or national resurgence. And this kind of perspective certainly takes progress in the AI, not as common benefits for the humankind, but as geopolitical competition or chip to become the global leader.
Rohit, Vice President Vance from the United States, he is on record now after Paris as saying that there's just too much regulation in Europe, and he feels this is a fledgling industry that shouldn't be strangled at birth. That's his take on this. I mean, is he right?
Well, what he's basically saying is this is, as Ger said, a geopolitical thing and a global economic thing. That AI is pretty much the only game in town right now that everyone's talking about. The stakes are so high. that it's almost impossible to imagine agreement on security, on personal protection of data, on global standards. There's a race going on. And whilst we had agreement globally on things like nuclear weapons, there wasn't a commercial piece to that. That was about mutually assured destruction. So you kind of got buy-in to the regulations on that. We're not going to get that on AI. As laudable as it is, and all the reasons David outlined, we should, but we're not going to get it. There's just going to be this flat-out race for growth driven by AI. And that's partly why the UK didn't sign, because we're in the UK, there is this desperate dash for growth to fund all the things that the government needs to do. That means attracting a lot of foreign investment. That is largely going to come from the big tech players if you want to build AI infrastructure. Trump has made it very clear to the UK that if we don't want his widespread tariffs, then we're going to have to do a lot to keep those big tech companies happy, which means lower taxes, less regulation. So if you look at the big picture, this is going to be inevitable that regulation will sort of fall by the wayside, will pay lip service. The other thing is that China, the big thing I think that's happened here is we've realized just how deep the skills base is in China. The belief is that there are way more AI-trained professionals and AI experts in China than the rest of the world put together. And that was shown by the kind of smart algorithms that both Alibaba and DeepSeek created. That required brain power. And so there's two things going on there. One is we'll see a lot more Chinese AI companies emerging. And the other is big corporations using AI. There'll be a much bigger skills base to help them adopt. And that's part of the challenge in the West, is that we don't have the skills base to have corporations really embrace it. So you can totally see why Vance is saying no rules, no guardrails.
Wild West.
Let's go for it. Just on Monday, Elon Musk put in a bid to buy OpenAI. They bid $97.4 billion to say we'll buy this company. It's a reasonable assumption to assume that one of Trump's entities has a stake in that bid. OpenAI turned around instead and said, we'll bid $9.74 billion to buy Twitter from you. So this is big boys as well, or little boys playing in the playground. You can't ignore that as part of this game. But the political emphasis, the political importance, the economic importance means that it's really unlikely that we'll see any kind of globally adopted or globally adhered to regulation.
So it's just the Wild West.
Absolutely.
Winner takes it all. All of this kind of fracture and splintering in the West and rows and squabbling over regulation of AI, it must be music to Chinese ears.
Oh, yes, definitely. However, we have also seen a lot of contrary opinions, both in China and abroad. So it is important to note that there are deep concerns about DeepSeek at the moment, not just related to what was just discussed as perhaps data security or privacy, but also about its profound compliance with China's political correctness. So many tests so far have indicated that its outputs heavily mirror the official stance of the Chinese government. And this suggests that it serves as a tool probably for reinforcing the domestic ideological control and exporting China's censorship and propaganda models internationally. And this places DeepSeek in a similar category to TikTok in terms of data security and content censorship concerns, as we have seen recently that the US Supreme Court has made its decision on TikTok. So this has a lot of implications for DeepSeek also as well.
David, it's worth noting that several governments have already told their officials, do not have this product on your government devices, mobile phones, laptops, etc. I'm looking at Australia, the Netherlands, South Korea, just to name a few. Are there legitimate security concerns about having this app on your devices?
I think there are legitimate concerns, but they're no different than the concerns you would have about any other app, or for that matter, for any other AI platform. So we've been telling people for a very long time, you should be very cautious about the kinds of information that you share with ChatGPT or with Claude on Anthropic. And I don't think the information is different with regard to any other AI platform. I don't think it's different to the kind of conversation that people are having around TikTok and what you should be sharing on there. So I think these things are perhaps brought more to the fore because of the sort of geopolitical situation that's going on right now. But on the whole, it's just good advice not to put information that's proprietary or confidential onto a platform that fundamentally sits on somebody else's computer.
Rohit, same question to you. I mean, would you have concerns about putting DeepSeek on your personal devices if you were working for, say, the British government?
Absolutely. But as David says, we would have those concerns about using any of those platforms. Some of the big players like Microsoft have created versions of these tools that have a firewall that effectively say you can pull any information in you want from the internet, but what you're creating and what you're using internally won't go out. So I assume they'll apply the same rules to using DeepSeek on their platforms. Inevitably, we are going to see some failures. We're going to see people putting government data in there or corporate data and it leaking, and there being a lot of noise for a couple of weeks about that. But I think also the thing to remember here is that if we look at these generative AI tools and we sort of think about a 1,000-mile race or even a 10-kilometer race, we're just putting our shoes and socks on, right? We're so far, we've got so far to go. What's coming next is what's called artificial general intelligence, which theoretically will be as smart as humans in every domain of human cognition. And then we'll very quickly move to artificial superintelligence, which will potentially be much smarter than us. Those things could be coming within the next 12 to 18 months. We just don't know. In the same way as we didn't see OpenAI, ChatGPT, or
this is scaring me in a way, because this is surely why we need regulation.
Well, the regulation will be so out of date by the time it's created, and these smart AI tools will work a way around these things. And so we still haven't regulated social media properly. And yet we're talking about regulating AI. And if you look at most of the conversations, even at UN level, about regulating AI, they're really talking about regulating the generative AI type stuff. They're nowhere near thinking about artificial general intelligence. But that's where the big bucks are going from the big corporations in this space. So it's another reason why the regulation thing, I think, just will be a non-starter globally. And that's where the huge prizes are, because we'll start to see enterprises being run with AGI. People are talking about labor rates being cut to 1/10 of what they are today, because the tech will be able to do so much. Companies making supernormal profits, a reshaping of the global economic ecosystem. So given the power, the importance of that, you can see that regulation really is going to be something that gets put in the bottom drawer.
Gur, final point to you. So Rohit says this is a 1,000-mile race and we're just putting on our shoes and socks, but it's quite clear China's out in front.
China is in front on the surface. From my perspective view, we are living in an information age, and the fundamental condition is the free flow of information and free speech. If there's no such spirit of free speech and free flow of information, the innovative technologies will be suffocated. It will not grow on a healthy, on a regular basis at a kind of healthy speed. So I'm not very sure about the long term, the long-term perspective that China will necessarily override the United States or the other liberal democracies. And by the way, the DeepSeek has given everyone this kind of hint that everyone, as long as we work hard, there is a great potential to get ahead of the others with little costs, probably.
Ge, David, and Rohit, thank you all so much for your insight on this one. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Just search for Roundtable TRT World. But for now, from me, Enda Brady, and all of the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.